All right. Evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Try to turn that thing on here. Let's see here. I think that's it. I don't know if that's it right there. All right.
Just need to turn it back on. It'll come up.
Is okay.
The light in the red there is on.
Okay. Please be seated. Excellent. Did I get it? Okay. Oh, there we go. All right. Welcome to another Peaceful Solution Character Education program teacher certification course. We're in the training course here. We're in the still pretty fresh here now in the parenting manual. It's the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Parenting Manual, a hands-on approach, which you should be able to find and download, on our Facebook page. Download that book for yourself so that you can follow along with us as we move forward in the book here. And if you remember, I know it's been a little while. It's been about 2 weeks now. Hope everyone was able to join the one-day spring seminar we had last Wednesday. A lot of great information there. Appeal to the world. All right. So we're going to be continuing here in the lesson 1. All right. Now we finished up the note to the parents, which was found on pages G through I believe there. Yeah, I. And the last time I spoke, we covered or picked up where William left off on page H under why start with character education. Basically laying in the student's mind, in this case the parent, why it's important to lay a great foundation for your child in character. Now, of course, we're going to get to the point where we start to, train up the child and start to kind of, build their minds and direct their thoughts and their desires and their behaviors and so forth. But first and foremost, we have to train the parent. And that's the goal here in the inception of this, which is what we're going to be getting into this evening. Now, if you look over to page 1A, this is lesson plan 1, page 1A. And this is the lesson plan 1, so you're going to be a parent. Or you can say it's a parent, you're going to be a parent. You can use it either way. And so in the purpose and objective, here students will learn that effective parenting begins at the onset of pregnancy. Now that word effective, it means successful in producing a desired or intended result. Successful in producing a desired or intended result. In this case, the desired or intended result is being, a parent that brings up a child in the ways of what we're covering here, brings them up with high moral values, high moral standards, high moral principles, and so forth. They will explore basic physical needs regarding pregnancy and early childhood. Now, this is kind of what the very first part of what the parents will go through here, and kind of the early stages here, taking them. Now, understand, you might have parents who, people who are thinking about, as students, people who are thinking about bringing forth a family or starting a family, people who are in that initial stage of starting a family. You might have people who have already 3 or 4 children, right? Maybe even a grown child or 2. There's not a point in their life where they can't learn to develop these skills of parenting, because even if a person has brought forth and raised children who have moved out of the house and started a family, got married, started a family, and they have children of their own, well, what are they going to do occasionally? They're going to bring them over to their grandparents or great-grandparents, or if you're that prosperous, great-great-grandparents if you're in that position. But you're still in that role of parenting is the point I'm making. So that role of parenting never stops. We're going to see here what parenting actually is and what a parent is. So now the materials that's going to be needed. So that was purpose and objective. The materials in this lesson here, of course, is the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Parenting Manual, and simply something to write with, pens, pencils, and so forth. Now, in the procedure number 1 here, we're getting into the procedures, and the first one here, it says, introduce. Now, remember, in this situation, or in this phase, we went through, we went all the way from the early learning, the beginners, the intermediate, the advanced, and now, for the most part, not in every situation, depends on the environment and values and decisions people have made, but for the most part, you're going to be dealing with adults, okay, who are in a program with a desire. Now, it could be it's just their desire, or it could be a court-ordered thing. It all depends. We've worked with both situations. So you're introducing yourself as the teacher or instructor of this program, and it says allow students to introduce themselves and give reasons or expectations for them taking the class. In other words, what is it that they're hoping to get out of the class? Now, see, we're starting off at the very onset here, getting feedback from the class, getting interaction from the class. We want to kind of connect with our students here, because we're not, like I said, we're not dealing with babies here. We're not dealing with 4-year-olds. In most cases, we're dealing with adults who have gotten to this point and made certain decisions in their life, not necessarily in a negative way. They could be, joyfully married, and now they're finally going to have a child or looking to have a child, and they want to improve their character so that they can give their child the best opportunity in life. So you're going to get some reasons and expectations from them, and then you as the teacher are going to emphasize that although this program begins with how to teach the unborn child, many of these concepts apply to older children as well, and can be carried through to adulthood. So don't let a person think, well, I don't have any babies, or I'm not pregnant, or my wife's not with child, or I'm not with child, or whatever. I've already got grown children or older or teenagers or whatever. It's too late for no. Remember what we covered here in the note to the parent. When children who don't have formal character education, parents and teachers begin to complain that they just don't know how to deal with the child. And at that stage, they do one of two things: ask themselves where they went wrong, or they simply reason that a child is a bad seed. Well, we already laid that groundwork at the very beginning that no, the child is not a bad seed. No, the child is not able to be able to be retrained or to develop the characteristics that's necessary to help them get out of those poor character traits or traits that they have that causes problems. And we're going to see some things here. Hopefully we move forward enough in the class that is a contributing factor to what we covered in the note to the parents. Sometimes it might be other things like the health of the mother, the environment of, and in this case, we're saying the mother because the mother is the one who's carrying the child, but her environment, her level of stress, the food she eats, how she takes care of her body, if she takes care of her body, all these things are kind of like what we talked about in the character unit there in the intermediate series. There are so many different contributing factors to your character. Well, there are a lot of different contributing factors to the development of a child in the womb of the mother, but then also those characteristics or traits will start to manifest later on in life. It could be as they're toddlers, or it could come out when they're teenagers, right? And there's physical things as well as emotional things that can take place while the child is still in the womb. And then people wonder, why is this child so bad? What's wrong with the child? Well, there's a lot of things that could play into that. But our job as teachers is not to, throw the child away or to make the parent feel that it's a hopeless situation, just move on to other children. No, it's to tell them, give them the skills and the tools necessary first and foremost to see possibly where they might have contributed to some of these things, and then work on ways to fix it. The tools, applying the tools in their daily life so that they can fix and start turning this situation around. Every situation can be fixed. The reason that a problem exists is because the solution to that problem has not been upheld. It has not been kept, right? In other words, to put it simply, in basic mathematics, if you add one number and one number, you're always going to get, the answer. 1 + 1 is always 2. 1 + 1 is always 2. 1 + 1 is always 2. Well, if you start changing that and saying 1 + 1 is 4, or adding a 4 when it's supposed to be a 1 so you can get a 2, now you have a 5. Well, you've changed something. So now you've created a problem. In order to get it back to that 2 where it needs to be, you have to get rid of that 4 and replace it back with a 1. Well, it's the same thing with character education. Whether a person realized it or not, there was something that was missing in that development of that child or even the parent's character that caused the problem. Now we have to put that missing puzzle piece back in place so that there can be an emotional, a mental balance there so that they can make better decisions. So emphasize that although this program begins with how to teach the unborn child, many of these concepts apply to older children as well and can be carried through to adulthood. Now, in procedure 2 here, it says explain to class that throughout this course, they will learn different aspects of effective parenting. Remember what effective is: successful in producing a desired or intended result, which by them coming to this class, it is evidence that they intend or have a desire for their children to have a better opportunity at life. They want to be great parents. And whether they realize it fully or not, they have a little bit of understanding to know that it begins with my character. Okay? So they're on the right track. So encourage them, throughout the class. In today's lesson, they will learn what to do from the moment they realize they're going to be parents. They will learn basic ways to help produce healthy children and how they can actually begin fostering positive character even in an unborn child. Fostering positive character even in an unborn child. So, before we proceed here, I want to look at a few definitions here because there are some differences in some of these things that we're looking at. For instance, the definition here of the word parent, I'm going to put that on the overhead there. The definition of the word parent is it's a noun, right? And it is a person who brings up or cares for another. Now, it could mean someone who, brings forth offspring and so forth, but generally speaking, it's a person who brings up or cares for another. Now, parenting, on the other hand, look at that. Parenting, on the other hand, now that's a verb. That's an action. That's what you're doing as a parent, whether you're parenting positively or parenting negatively, you're parenting nonetheless, or teaching. It's parenting practices around the world share 3 major goals. Ensuring children's health and safety, preparing children for life as productive adults, and transmitting cultural, and I put there morals, because that's what we're going to be talking about in this class, moral values, and cultural values too, because there's nothing wrong with that. A high quality parent-child relationship, notice here, is critical for healthy development. Now think about everything that we covered in chapter 2 of the character unit and talking about the effects of character within the family, right? And how when there aren't principles, moral principles that are followed within that family, yes, there can even be abuse by the parent to the child. In some cases, the child to the parent. Now, you're not usually going to get that from a toddler, but when children get a little bit older, they might do something like that. although parents might feel they're abused by their toddlers when they're having their tantrums. But generally speaking, in unhealthy, or what we called or how it was labeled in the book, dysfunctional families, you can see all types of forms of abuse, from mental, psychological, emotional, physical, and even sexual abuse takes place. Well, it's important, or at this definition actually says it's critical, right? A high quality parent child relationship is critical for healthy development. Okay. And then we see here at the bottom of procedure 2, they will learn basic ways to help produce healthy children and and how they can actually begin fostering positive character even in an unborn child. And the simple definition of this word foster here, it simply means to promote the growth or development of. To promote the growth or development of. And a lot of times we think about, foster parents. It's a parent who kind of takes the role of a child who is not biologically theirs. And that is a part of the definition of a foster parent. But the key word in that is parent, right? Actually, the two go together. The foster parent is there to promote the growth and development of the child in the place of the child's biological parent, right? In that child's place, for whatever reason, the child doesn't have a parent, but irregardless. So the point that I'm wanting to get clear is it doesn't matter if the child belongs to that person or not biologically, they still have an important role to play in that child's development. And so it's essential, it's critical, it's vital that they have the skills in character development so that they can bring forth or bring up the child in a positive way. All right, so number 3 here, it says this is an activity. And of course, if you were in a group setting, you had a classroom setting, you would have time to do this. You can kind of plan it out beforehand. But we'll go over it here, read it just to get it in your mind. And it says, instruct students to form groups, give groups 5 minutes to list what a baby needs before birth and as a newborn. Now, you base your groups depending on how many students you have. If you have 15 students, you might do 3 groups of 5 or 5 groups of 3, whatever you want to do to make it work. Share and discuss answers. And of course, some of their answers might include, even before birth, the baby needs a great mother who supplies the proper nutrients, one who does not smoke, do drugs, or abuse alcohol. A newborn needs shelter, diapers, clothes suited for weather, bottles, etc., as well as love, care, concern, and emotional support. And other answers might, be included in that. And some of these things tie into that, just like a healthy environment, right? A healthy environment so that they can grow in. A lot of, you see a lot of mothers, when they find out that they're going to have a baby, they get really particular about who they're around, the environments they're around. They might not smoke, right? Or never smoked, and they don't want to even be around somebody who's smoking, right? They distance themselves, not to be rude, but because they're thinking about not only their health, because their health does affect the baby, but the health of their baby. If they did drink alcohol, they educate themselves. They would, cut back on that or quit altogether. They would improve their health. That is the foods that they eat, the quality of their foods that they eat, not necessarily a quantity issue, but the quality of their food is very important. And it's interesting because the the human body is pretty magnificent in its design, in how it's able to filter out certain bad things that the mother would take into her body to protect the child, through the umbilical cord and so forth. And the mother and the child does not share the same blood, but there are nutrients that are able to pass through. Now, there are also poisons and toxins and drugs that are also able to pass through those barriers of protection, because microscopically they're a lot smaller and they can get through those things and be carried on through receptors and so forth. And they could affect the child too in a negative way if a person is not even aware. Now, this is, I don't mean to, get off topic here, but we talked in the earlier units about risk-taking behaviors. And some of those risk-taking behaviors are premarital sex. And I've seen many, many times, many articles where, women, they go to the doctor, right? I mean, they're living their life, they're out partying, and we're not hammering on women, but these are the ones that carry the baby. So this is why I'm making this particular point. But they're living their life, they're going out and they're partying and so forth, and then next thing you know, they're at the doctors and they're like, yeah, I don't know what, I'm just having these problems. They're like, oh yeah, well you're 7 months pregnant, you're 6 months pregnant. What? No, I'm not 6 months pregnant. Oh, everything proves here. We got the ultrasounds, the blood tests, urine samples, everything. You're pregnant. Sometimes they don't know that they're even pregnant until they're giving birth. And they're like, oh, I had no idea. Now, in the meantime, they were living this illicit life and carrying on with their daily activities like they didn't have a care in the world. In the meantime, they're doing things to their bodies and engaging in activities that is probably not the healthiest for the child. Again, that comes back to our decisions, the decisions and the choices that we make. They don't only affect us, because even though they didn't intentionally, conceive, they were engaged in activities, those risk-taking behaviors, right, that brought forth the child, but because they weren't being careful with the way they thought, the way they acted, how they conducted themselves with other people, valuing themselves, right? Having a high value. When you have a high value for yourself, you're not going to engage in those types of behaviors. Those behaviors affected the child because they didn't even know they had a child, right? Just because you didn't know there was a child in there doesn't mean you're going and binge drinking is not going to affect the child. There is no do-over on that. So in this activity here, we just looked at that. In other words, a baby needs a healthy environment, and take as many answers as time permits from your groups so that you can kind of get them comfortable in speaking and being a part of the class. All right. So now procedure 4 is where we get into the lesson here. Read excerpts from pages 1 through 2 under prenatal care, a woman's physical needs, and discuss why proper prenatal care is so important. Knowledge of do's and don'ts of early pregnancy help to keep both mother and baby safe. A healthy diet gives the baby nutrients to develop properly, etc. Okay, and this is some of the things we're going to cover here. So let's stop there. We're going to be that's procedure 4. That's where we left off. And we're going to go to page 1 to 2. And let's go to page 1 in your book here. All right, and so this is lesson 1. So you're going to be a parent. When does the role of parenting begins? Is it when your infant is newly born? Is it when your infant becomes somewhat aware of the world around him? Or is it when your infant begins to crawl, walk, or talk? Well, the correct answer is none of the above. Your role as a parent begins from the moment of conception. And I was trying to find some videos that were, royalty-free videos that I could use, from an educational source. But you can go online and you can actually find, they have developed microscopes that can actually see the exact time when the sperm connects with the egg in the woman's body, and that moment of what scientists are saying is conception starts, that there's a big kind of flash of light that goes around that cell, right? The female cell, reproductive cell, or the egg. And science has not figured it out, they say, well, it's a sudden release of zinc. It's a release of calcium. They've got a lot of speculation on what it is. I don't know what zinc looks like under a microscope. I don't know if it flashes. I don't know if calcium flashes. I have no idea. Calcium flashes, I would think my teeth would be like bright like flashlights, but I don't know. I don't know how it acts under those conditions. But they've actually been able to not only see this in a microscope, but record it in a video and show that moment. You just see that bright flash of what they're saying is light goes around that egg. All right. So for all intents and purposes, everyone, even in the scientific community, is calling that the moment of conception. All right. So it says here, that's when your role as a parent starts. Remember, a positive parent is responsible for the safety, health, well-being, and education of her infant. Now, you don't really think about this beforehand. It doesn't really hit a parent until, to some degree, especially a first-time parent, it doesn't really hit them until after the child is born. And you actually get to see how dependent that child is on you as the parent for its life, for its resources. The child is completely helpless. That child can really basically eat, sleep, cry, and eliminate. That's all the power that they have to do. If they're hungry and mom or dad's not coming, well, they can't just, oh, forget it, I'm just going to walk to the refrigerator myself. They can't get up and do that. If they're dirty, they can't change themselves. If they have a temperature or a fever, they can't do anything to reduce. They're completely dependent on the parent. But the thing is, this doesn't begin only after the child is born. They're completely dependent on that parent, in this case, the mother, because that's who's carrying the child. But the father plays a role too, right? He plays a role in creating a healthy and a stable environment for the child, because he has to create a healthy and stable environment for the mother. And we know that, plenty of research from the National Institutes of Health, the American Medical Association, the CDC, American Psychological Association, all these different, medical foundations and groups have done tons of studies over thousands and thousands of people. And they found out that, just the mental stress and anxiety that a mother can go through or goes through during the time period from that conception till she gives birth tremendously impacts the development of that child on an emotional level, on a psychological level. You can have children who are jumpy and anxious and so forth because they were, that's what they experienced while they were in the womb. That's what the mother experienced while they were in the womb. You think about it, from just the individual or an adult standpoint. If you heard somebody speaking to you, in a firm tone of voice, when they came to correct you, or they might be even correcting somebody else, you kind of get a little bit like nervous, like, man, am I in trouble? Oh man, are they gonna? I remember as a child, when my other sibling, when my other sibling was in trouble, man, I was, let me go wash the dishes real quick. I don't want to. I don't want mom to turn her wrath on me, but you got that energy, you got that frequency, right? Coming forth just from the tone of the voice. Or somebody comes in and says, man, everybody, man, it is great to see you. You look great today, man. I'm so glad you're feeling great today, man. The day's going wonderful. The weather's beautiful. They kind of bring up the mood and the environment. They make you feel great. You feel great to be around that person. Why would it not affect the child? Why would it not affect the child? So a child who is in the womb, who the husband comes home and he's all upset because he didn't get the raise that he wanted, or, somebody, bumped into his car, or somebody, this guy, upsets me all the time. Or maybe he's an abuser. He takes things out on his wife because he gets abused or can't do things in his workplace. So he yells at his wife, and heavens forbid he hits her, or whatever the case might be. These things affect the child. I've seen so many cases on the news where, parents were arrested for child endangerment, and they had their children removed from the home because they were in there cooking meth in the same house that they had very young children in. That's a poison toxin. Some of these houses they actually have to just completely destroy because that stuff seeps into the walls and the carpet and everything. How much of a defense do you think a child has in something like that? They don't even know what's going on, right? But those things are seeping into their cells, seeping into their brain, seeping into their organs, their liver. They have to work hard to get rid of those poisons. Your liver's working all the time to get rid of things that your body's not supposed to have. And so they're in these environments, even within the mother's womb, having to put up with this. And you don't realize how dependent your child is on you until they're out. But usually by that time, a lot of things are a little bit too late. So this is where we're coming in as the peaceful solution in the parenting manual to get the parents to understand, no, you can't start your role of being a great parent or creating a healthy environment for your child after the child is born. You have to start right now. And so we really want to instill that in their minds. And they probably never heard that before. They probably never, my mom was a 6-pack a day smoker. She smoked all the way through with me. I didn't have any problems. I mean, yeah, I had a child when I was 13, but I didn't have any problems. But these things affect them. We're going to see, we've got some articles here, that actually show some of these things. But that's the reality. Like I mentioned before, I went to high school with young ladies who were having children in 9th grade. And by the time we graduate high school, they had 3 children. All right. Where do you start at high school? 13, 14 years old, go up to 17, 18 years old. And I knew one girl, every year she had a child, right? I can pretty much assure you that her environment was not a healthy one. I don't know what her home life was. I don't know what her parents were like or whatever, but I'm sure she didn't have a healthy environment because she would have made different decisions had she had the knowledge. So here, let's see here. So obviously this begins before they're born. It says here, your role as a parent begins from the moment of conception. Remember, a positive parent is responsible for the safety, health, and well-being and education of her infant. Hence, when a woman comes to know the joyful news that she is pregnant, and for the most part, it should be joyful. I mean, if you're out there engaging in risk-taking behaviors, then it's going to be a oh no moment. Oh crap, are you serious? Yeah, because you were doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, and now to every action, or every action there's a reaction. To every cause there's an effect. The baby's not the problem. The child isn't the fault. It's the choices that the individual's made. Now you got to deal with it in a positive way. Society has created a lot of negative ways for that to be dealt with. In the case of murder, or AKA more commonly politically accepted as abortion. Okay, that's not a way to deal with things. Even if a person decided, I can't do this, I would rather give my child up for adoption. That's better than just taking their life away, right? And there's a lot of programs that are out there for that as well. But education is the key. So here are some things that a mother might do. She might change the way she eats, incorporating more fresh and wholesome foods into her diet. Walk more to increase her strength and stamina, and reduce unnecessary risk, such as the abuse of alcohol and tobacco products. Making these changes and more in order to ensure the best start to life for her unborn child is the onset of positive parenting. So what she's doing to herself, for herself, you see that? That's the onset of positive parenting. Let me read something to you real quick here, because what she eats and the food she eats makes a huge improvement, and it can make a huge improvement in the child's development, especially their mental development. It says here, this is an article, it says, what you eat during pregnancy can affect your baby's brain, and here's what to avoid. A new study suggests that a mother's diet during pregnancy can impact her child's risk of ADHD and autism. Researchers found that following a Western diet high in processed foods increased the risk, while a nutrient rich diet with fish, nuts, and vegetables might actually help to reduce it. And of course, these foods that they're talking about here, they're foods that greatly impact the health of the child's developing brain, right? The brain is growing at a substantial rate. You know, new neurons and so forth are being built, and they need a healthy environment. There's a lot of energy, I mean, like physical energy on a molecular level that grows into growing a baby, right? And so this is why the mother sometimes she'll get certain cravings. You know, I'm not talking about Captain Crunch, you know, I mean, but maybe there's something in those 24 essential vitamins and nutrients, you know, that's in that box of Captain Crunch. I don't know. But she'll get certain cravings. But, you know, the way the human body works is we'll crave things, or our bodies know where we can extract certain things out of, even if it's in the most tiny amount. So it might seem like you want more junk food. I know a lot of people, they'll go through this salt phase, you know, where they want to eat a lot of like French fries and so forth, you know. And sometimes the men will be right in there supporting that wife. Yeah, let's go get some more French fries. Let's get another steak, you know. I'm with you. I got your back. You know. But we're going to grow together, you know. But those cravings are because the body is requiring certain nutrients and minerals to help the body grow, because the mother is really, a lot is being taken from her, and she's got to replace those things. And it might be in the form of a junk food because she's never eaten anything healthy, you know, where she could have grasped that from. Like, she might have only eaten certain breakfast foods or cereals that have a certain amount of zinc in them, right? But she's never eaten like a lot of broccoli or something. I don't know if zinc's in broccoli, but whatever, you know, a vegetable or a fruit that has that. Had she been used to eating that, then her body would be craving that. You see, your body can only crave the things that it knows about. So it's important, and this is why doctors, you know, usually physicians will recommend that a mother will take a prenatal or a multivitamin, because sadly a lot of our foods don't have the proper amount of nutrients that they should have in them. A lot of it's stripped out of the foods and then resold to you in a bottle, because why? You can make more money that way. Now, it says a new study suggests that what a mother eats during pregnancy could affect her child's risk of developing ADHD, or autism. Researchers found that following a Western-style diet high in fats, sugars, and I would suspect unhealthy sugars, fake sugars or false sugars. There's a lot of sugars out there that they call sugars. They don't call them sugars. They call them sweeteners, right? And a lot of them have been proven to, I'll say what they say, cause cancer in lab mice. All right. Sometimes the world can be a lab and the humans are the mice. So high in sugars and processed foods. And of course, it was linked to a greater, so this Western diet was linked to a greater chance of developmental disorders in children. So developmental, we're talking about foods that you can eat that can affect the brain. The study, published in Nature Metabolism, analyzed over 60,000 Norwegian mother-child pairs. Now, we're not talking about a small number here, 60,000. It found that even small shifts in the Norwegian, now this was in the Norwegian mothers, who they don't typically live a Western diet. In fact, in Norway, I was going to say Norwegia, in Norway, they eat a lot of fish and so forth out in that area. I'm sure that there's a McDonald's out there somewhere, or a Burger King, or a Long John Silver's or whatever, but they have a different diet. In fact, they found Mediterranean diets, because there's people hear the words fats. Oh, fats, we got to stay away from fats. We don't want fats. We're going to get fat if we eat fat. Well, no. One of the things your brain absolutely loves for food is fat. It loves fat, but healthy fat, right? And that's the thing. This is why knowledge and education is important, because not all fat is healthy. I understand there are people that live up in places like Antarctica and up way north in Alaska, and they eat whale blubber. Well, I can't even say it. You know, they eat whale blubber. They ferment it and cut it because, you know, they don't have cows roaming up there. So they kind of, I guess, culturally, that's just what they've done. Not all fats are healthy. And so this is where it's necessary for a mother and the father, the parents, to educate themselves about the things that are healthy and beneficial for their bodies, because what they eat is going to affect their child. But fats are very important, and we're going to see that here in a little bit. It found that even small shifts towards a Western diet during pregnancy were linked to a 66% higher risk of ADHD and a 122% higher risk of autism in children. The lead researcher, David Horner of the University of Copenhagen, explained, the greater a woman's adherence to a Western diet during pregnancy, the higher the risk of her child developing ADHD or autism. However, researchers also emphasize that even small improvements in diet, such as adding more fish, and they've always told women, you know, especially with pregnant women, you know, eat more fish. Now, they've since put out warnings, you know, telling them not to eat too much fish because some of the fish that they eat could be contaminated with mercury. And I'm not talking about the one made by Ford Motor Company, you know, but it could be contaminated with mercury, and that mercury can actually build up in the body and cause developmental problems in the child. But for the longest period of time, fish was a great resource of omega fatty 3 acids, DHEA, and so forth. Great brain food. So adding fish, fruits, and vegetables, it says here, could potentially reduce these risks. So even if they were, you know, tied up in a Western diet, switching that to more beneficial foods, fruits and vegetables were shown to be healthy. Now, on the fish thing, it says whether you're happily child-free, hoping to grow your family, this is another article, or currently have a bun in the oven, eating fish is one of the best ways to promote overall health, and nutritional benefits of fish are many. Again, there's healthy fish, there's unhealthy fish, all right? Now, the cat's out of the bag, right? But certain fish, they have essential oils in them that you can get it through cooking and eating the fish. You can also buy it in the bottle as well. They extract the oil from the fish, the livers, and so forth. And you can get it kind of as a concentrate and just taking it. Now, get with your doctor and so forth. You know, this is not medical advice by any means, but research has shown by increasing the amount of fish oils in the body, even if you're not a mother or having a child, just as an adult, increasing fish oils in your diet can help improve your brain function. The vitamin A in there can be beneficial for the eyesight. It's great for the liver. It's great for the digestive system. Great for your skin. Great for there's a ton of benefits here. And I don't have a fish oil to sell you. I'm just telling you that it's very beneficial. Most fish are high in protein and other essential nutrients like vitamin D and selenium. Oily types of fish like salmon are also a great source of heart-healthy omega-3 fats. Now, the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration, and the Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommend that everyone, not just pregnant mothers, women, eat at least 8 ounces of seafood each week. The guideline recommend pregnant women consume between 8 to 12 ounces or 340 grams of, now get it, it's got to be low mercury seafood weekly. I would hope you'd have 0 mercury, but with as contaminated as our waters are and the lakes and so forth, and what gets dumped out into the oceans and even dumped out into our Great Lakes, and it's hard to get that. Everything it's going to take a lot to clean everything up, but fish didn't have these things to begin with. For expecting mothers, this equates to 2 to 3 servings of fish per week. Now it says there are several superfoods people should include in their diet throughout their entire pregnancy, and fish is one. Eating fish not only provides a plethora of healthy benefits for expecting mothers, but the nutrients found in fish directly supports the growing baby as well. And it says here, it directly supports the baby's brain development. High quality fish are one of the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids, also known as EPA and DHA. And I'm not going to try to even pronounce that. Omega-3 fatty acids have many benefits during pregnancy, including that they directly supports the baby's brain development. They are a primary structural component of the human brain, eyes, and skin. Brain, eyes, and skin. So you could actually, even if you have bad eyesight as a parent, you can actually start boosting your child's opportunity to not inherit that poor eyesight for whatever it might be by boosting the amount of omega-3 fatty acids. It could take place. It's not going to hurt. Plus, they play a big role in the growth and development of the baby's nervous system and immune system. On top of all that, they have been researched to help reduce the risk of preterm labor, and that's for the mother having the baby too soon. All right. So now here it says, as soon as pregnancy occurs, back to page 1 here. As soon as pregnancy occurs, changes begin within a woman's body. The baby is constantly growing and developing over the next 9 months. We have the responsibility to ensure the healthiest lifestyle for ourselves so that we will have healthy babies. All right, and then we get down here to where it says prenatal care, which is prenatal or before birth. A woman's physical needs. Now, I know you might think men will go ahead and zone out. We'll zone out. This doesn't apply to us, right? We're not women. We're not having babies. We don't need to take prenatal vitamins. We don't need to do any of that. You just need to kick back. Just let me know when it's time to deliver. I'll grab the bags and get the car, right? No, it's really beneficial to help the wife during this process because she's under a tremendous amount of stress. She's under a lot of, changes, hormonal changes. She might forget certain things, because there's a lot. The hormones affect the mind and the memory and so forth. She's having to keep up with a lot of different things that are taking place in her body and discomfort and appointments and things like that. So your role as the father can be very helpful in reminding her of certain things or just helping her wherever it's needed and helping to reduce her stress so that it will in turn reduce the stress on the baby. Whatever you choose, As soon as you realize you're pregnant, it is very important to become educated on all you need to know beneficial for yourself and the baby. Whatever you choose, it is important to seek this care as early as possible so that you might receive guidance and advice throughout your pregnancy. Proper prenatal care can help you stay healthy and help your baby grow strong and be delivered safely. All right. And of course, like they say here, the sooner a mother realizes this, which, I understand there could be circumstances that might occur, which might cause her not to, but, a lot of women, they are somewhat intuitive and they kind of pay attention to the changes within their body. And even if they suspect certain things, it doesn't take much just to do a little test and find out because it's better safe than sorry, right? Because sometimes people have conditions where, they might be predisposed to having difficult labor, right? Difficult gestation and so forth. And so the sooner they can be made aware of the fact that they're pregnant, the sooner they can take the steps or precautions to ensure the healthiest labor possible. Throughout pregnancy, you should eat moderate amounts of healthy foods. This does not mean eating for two. And I've heard that before, well, I'm eating for two now, so give me 2 ice cream scoops, again, the appetite does increase. I understand that it does. But everything should still be done in moderation because too much of even a great thing could be harmful. Your diet should consist of proteins, carbohydrates, vegetables, fruits, fats, vitamins, and minerals. it is important to eat a well-balanced diet. And it doesn't mean just be in the house all day, chomping on everything because you got to eat well. Now, it also includes going out, and we're going to see, taking care of your health, exercising, taking walks, getting fresh air, and so forth. Sunlight. Sunlight's very beneficial too because the body actually converts vitamin D in the intestines when it receives that sunlight. When that sunlight hits the skin, right, and it goes through a process, and it can actually convert into vitamin D, which, from what I understand and what we've read in all the medical reports, is one of the healthiest forms of vitamin D, better than what you can get out of a bottle or a pill or anything like that. Fruits and vegetables are a must for development of your baby's skin, bones, and eyes. Iron-rich foods such as liver, ooh boy, gotta love that liver, boy. Go for a nice liver pate. Is your mouth watering right now? No, mine isn't either. But liver, again, yeah, I always say educate yourself. Not all livers are beneficial. Okay, now there are certain livers or livers from animals that are not beneficial. Those animals are not beneficial to eat. Even certain livers from animals that are beneficial to eat aren't beneficial because nowadays there's so many parasites in the land. When you take that liver out, not only the land, but the water too, when you take that liver out, you'll notice there's all types of worms and parasites, or it's got growths or tumors and things like that on the liver. This is why it's great if you're going to eat liver to make sure you're getting it from a source that you can actually see. Because if you just get it in a capsule or some type of liver jelly, I don't know how they I don't know how they sell it. I almost just vomit in my mouth right there. You don't know, because manufacturers, especially on the commercial scale, they'll just throw all that stuff in there and they'll say naturally sourced. Who knows? That could be from raccoon, squirrel, dog, cat, deer, beaver. You have no idea. So you want to make sure as a parent that you educate yourself and make sure that you're getting liver from a clean source. Sometimes you can go to local farms and you can get, like organic co-ops and so forth, and you can buy these things and you can actually inspect them. You can look at the animal even, and make sure that it's clean and healthy. Because even with fish, you got to be careful with fish. Fish have parasites in them too, and there are certain parasites in fish, especially the ones that aren't healthy, that can actually go into the person's body as just a little egg, and they set up home in the liver, and they grow and become very fat, flat liver flukes. And I don't know if you've ever seen a medical, surgery where they've actually pulled the liver fluke out of a person's liver. It's not something you want living in your body, right? So do the best you can, educate yourself, and know the difference between what's healthy and what's not. So iron-rich foods such as liver and greens may be beneficial. Try to drink sufficient water each day. Many women find drinking 1 to 4 cups of red raspberry tea every day to be very beneficial. There are other beneficial supplements you might take, such as calcium or iron. And you want to, again, check with your physician, because it's not a one-size-fits-all with these things. Some people are sensitive to certain vitamins and minerals and nutrients. Some people are sensitive to the way it's produced. They might not have another nutrient synergistically combined with the other so that it can work properly, and sometimes people get sick when they take it, right? You got to have everything in the proper balance, and everybody's body is different. Throughout the pregnancy, your body will go through many changes, such as moderate weight gain, minor fatigue, and skin changes. Now, this is still talking about the women, not the men, such as acne. Now, those things are normal. Other changes, so always keep telling your wife she's still beautiful, right? It doesn't matter. She's going to go through these things. Now, not everybody, right? Sometimes if they had acne, it's going to go away. Sometimes women lose weight when they're pregnant. I don't know how it works. Sometimes they do. Everyone's body is different. But this is to get the soon-to-be mother to understand there are going to be things like that. Sometimes people go through minor fatigue. Sometimes people go through extreme fatigue. I've seen, people go through extreme fatigue when they're pregnant. and they're so hungry, but they're so tired that they're sitting there with a piece of chicken and they're falling asleep, but they're hungry, but they're tired at the same time, but they're too tired to eat, right? And so, they just kind of have to understand that they're going to have to work through these, and they get through it, right? And then things get better as they move forward. But, it's interesting, and doctors will tell you that a lot of times in those first, call it the first trimester or the first 3 months, the woman's body is kind of in a cleansing mode, and it's getting rid of a lot of things that she might have unintentionally eaten or whatever. And sometimes she'll go through horrible bouts of morning sickness. Sometimes they won't actually get sick and spill everything up, but they'll feel nauseous all the time, right? And that's got to be horrible. I don't know about you. I don't like feeling nauseous. I don't like feeling dizzy. I couldn't imagine going through something like that for 2-3 months or whatever, but some people do. Other changes such as severe cramping or pain or moderate heavy bleeding, excessive swelling of the hands and feet should not be ignored. Seek medical advice and on any change that you are unsure or uneasy about. Now, of course, the woman, if she gets with her doctor, then she'll be able to keep up with those things. I am missing, let's see here, something I wanted to cover. Oh, wow. I wonder if I missed that part. Let's see. Yeah, I kind of did. We're going to stop right there. We still have a few more minutes, but we're going to stop right there before the babies can hear and learn in the womb. I want to look back to page 1 here, because I think I skipped over this when I was John. If you go back to page 1 on the about the bottom third of that first paragraph, it says, for example, she might change the way she eats, incorporating more fresh and wholesome foods into her diet. Oh yeah, I did skip this. Walk more to increase her strength and stamina and reduce unnecessary risk, such as the abuse of alcohol and tobacco products. And real quick here, because I wanted to pull this up because I've seen this. This has actually become a problem. Not really become a problem, but it's been a problem for a while. But it's something called FAS, which is fetal alcohol syndrome. And it's caused by alcohol entering the bloodstream of an unborn child, which occurs when a woman ingests alcohol while she's pregnant. Now, when alcohol is consumed during pregnancy, a percentage of it passes to the placenta and to the fetus, where the alcohol is more concentrated in the actual placenta. An unborn baby's liver isn't developed enough to process alcohol, so as a result of this higher level of alcohol concentration, the unborn baby may not receive sufficient oxygen and nutrition that he or she needs. And of course, if you've ever had alcohol and if you've ever gone too far with alcohol, that's one of the reasons why people get what they call tipsy or drunk, because the alcohol replaces the oxygen. And so without the proper amount of oxygen, you can also see this in hypoxia, like if people in low oxygen areas or in high altitudes, they get, they call it altitude sickness, and they can experience the same thing where it makes it seem like they're drunk, but it's the lack of oxygen to the brain that causes it. And just real quick, I wanted to just read, we have 1 minute here. So this lack of oxygen to the brain affects proper development. It can cause physical and neurological damage to the brain. And it says, according to the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, some signs in the classroom, now this is when the child gets a little bit older and is going to school, are hyperactivity, impulsivity, and attention and memory deficits, inability to complete tasks and disruptiveness, poor social skills, need for constant supervision, disregard for rules and authority. And it says, as the child reaches the teenage years, he or she might have trouble with appropriate sexual behavior and may even find him or herself having problems with the law. He or she might have poor impulse control and need daily reminders of basic concepts. So this is why what we covered in the first part, from beginners all the way to advanced, this part is super important, because whether you realize it or not, how you conduct yourself and the things you do to your body or put into your body can affect your child's physical and mental development to the point where they're making poor choices later on in life. And it's not just a matter of their character development, it's a matter of physical and mental things that are taking place that have to be counteracted with education and training and so forth, but there could be other causes behind it. So this is why it's important that we give our future parents and current parents the skills necessary to build their minds, take care of themselves, their minds and their bodies, to develop positive character skills and traits and habits and principles so that they can give this to their children as well. So we're going to stop right there on page 2, and our next teacher will be David. He'll be picking up on where babies can hear and learn while in the womb. Our next class will be this upcoming Sunday, April 27th, 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you later this week. Have a wonderful evening.